flow the way you were taught, and everything you learned in school about electrons rushing through wires like water through pipes turns out to be wrong. In 1882, I stood in a Budapest park reciting Goethe, while Thomas Edison's direct current empire lit up Manhattan, and his engineers had convinced the entire world that power stations pumped invisible fluid to every lamp and motor in New York City. Edison had become the most celebrated inventor in America, perhaps anywhere on Earth. And that's when something happened that would prove his entire system obsolete. Watching the Hungarian sunset paint the sky in gold and crimson, I saw a truth that Edison never grasped. The energy that powers your civilization, every motor and lamp and device you touch, does not travel inside the wire and never has. That vision in Budapest would ignite the war of currents, reshape the modern world, and reveal something about energy that most people still do not understand. What I saw that day changed everything, and I want to show you exactly what it was. The obsession started much earlier, when I was 6 years old in Smiljan, a small village in what is now Croatia. My family had a magnificent black cat named Mačak, and his fur seemed alive with its own inner fire. One winter evening, the air turned peculiarly cold and dry, drier than anything I had experienced before, and I was stroking Mačak's back when the impossible happened. Sparks began crackling between my fingers in the darkness, blue-white and alive. The cat's fur became a sheet of living light, and my hand produced a shower of tiny lightning bolts with every stroke. Running to my father, terrified and exhilarated in equal measure, I demanded to know what this was. My father was a Serbian Orthodox priest, but also a man of learning, and he looked at me with wonder in his eyes before telling me it was electricity, the same force that splits the heavens during storms. Sleep would not come that night, because the questions would not stop. Nature itself seemed like a gigantic cat, and I wanted to know who strokes its back. Michael Faraday had discovered electromagnetic induction decades before my birth, and James Clerk Maxwell had written his famous equations describing electromagnetic waves. But here's the thing, not Faraday, not Maxwell, not even the great Edison himself had truly grasped what I would come to understand about how electrical energy actually travels. The picture you received in school went something like this. Electricity consists of electrons, tiny charged particles flowing through a conductor like water through a garden hose, with the power plant acting as a pump and the wire serving as a pipe. The electrons push their way from source to destination, carrying energy as they drift along. This model has a simplicity that satisfies minds seeking easy answers, and it works well enough for basic calculations. But it fails completely when you examine what actually happens. Here is the question that should trouble you. If energy truly flows through the wire carried by drifting electrons, how fast do those electrons actually move? At typical household currents, electrons in copper wire drift at roughly 1 millimeter per second. A snail moves faster, and so does honey dripping from a spoon in winter. Glaciers grinding across continents move faster. The very ground beneath your feet, pushed by tectonic forces, outpaces the electrons supposedly flowing through your lamp cord. What that means is staggering when you think it through. A wire stretching 1 kilometer from a power source to a lamp would require more than 11 days for electrons to travel that distance. 11 days of darkness while they crawled through copper at their glacial pace. But that is not what happens when you flip a switch. The light appears almost instantaneously, within a tiny fraction of a second, because something moves at nearly the speed of light to deliver that energy. And that something is not the electrons. What Faraday intuited, what Maxwell formalized mathematically, and what I made practical with my rotating magnetic field all point to the same truth. The wire is not the carrier, but merely a guide. Energy flows through the electromagnetic field surrounding the conductor, not through the metal itself. An analogy will help illuminate this mystery. When a church bell rings, it does not push sound through the air like water through a hose, and the bronze certainly does not travel to your ear. The bell creates a disturbance, waves of compression and expansion radiating outward through the surrounding space. Bronze shapes and sources the wave, while the air between you and the bell carries the actual energy of sound. You hear the bell not because metal has traveled to you, but because a field disturbance has propagated through the medium. Electricity works exactly the same way. Closing a switch does not send electrons racing through the conductor. What it does is establish an electromagnetic field that radiates outward from the source at the speed of light. This field extends through the space around the wires rather than inside them, and it carries the energy while the electrons in the wire barely move at all. They oscillate slightly and vibrate in place, but they do not journey from power plant to lamp. Oliver Heaviside and John Henry Poynting proved this mathematically in the 1880s, showing that electromagnetic energy flows perpendicular to both the electric and magnetic fields. What that means is the energy flows through the space surrounding the wire, converging inward toward any point where energy gets consumed. Your lamp filament does not receive energy delivered through the wire like packages through a pneumatic tube. The filament draws energy inward from fields permeating the space around it, pulling it in the way a drain pulls water from a bathtub. This is established physics, verified repeatedly, hidden in plain sight for anyone willing to look beyond the elementary pictures. Now let me tell you about Budapest and the afternoon that changed my understanding of the universe. For months I had been struggling with what seemed like an impossible problem: how to create a motor without the troublesome brushes and commutators plaguing every electrical machine of the era. Edison's direct current motors needed constant maintenance because the brushes wore down, sparked, and failed. A better way had to exist, but I could not see it, and the effort consumed me until I became ill from mental and physical exhaustion. My friend Anthony Seghetti insisted on walks in the city park to help me recover my health, and that's when everything changed. One February afternoon we strolled through Budapest as the sun descended toward the horizon, and I was reciting Goethe's Faust from memory because I knew entire books by heart in those days. The passage went, "The glow retreats, done is the day of toil. It yonder hastes, new fields of life exploring. Ah, that no wing can lift me from the soil, upon its track to follow, follow soaring." Lightning from a clear sky would be the only way to describe what happened next. The rotating magnetic field appeared in my mind, not as an abstract concept, but as a vivid and tangible reality. Fields swept through space in continuous rotation, dragging a rotor along without any physical connection. No brushes, no commutator, no contact whatsoever. Pure electromagnetic induction creating continuous rotary motion. Grabbing a stick, I drew the diagrams in the sand right there in the park, while the images in my mind stayed wonderfully sharp and clear with the solidity of metal and stone. "See my motor here," I told Seghetti, pointing at the sand. "Watch me reverse it." And in my imagination the field rotated backward while the rotor obediently followed. Pygmalion, seeing his statue come to life, could not have been more deeply moved. 1,000 secrets of nature which I might have stumbled upon accidentally, I would have given for that one truth wrested from her against all odds. George Westinghouse saw what I saw, and he bet his entire fortune on it. Edison clung to direct current while insisting it was safer, simpler, and superior, but Westinghouse recognized that alternating current and my polyphase system could transmit power over distances that would bankrupt any direct current network. The war of currents had begun, and Edison fought with everything he had. Public demonstrations where he electrocuted animals to prove alternating current was dangerous became his weapon of choice, along with lobbying and fear and every dirty trick available. None of that mattered, because physics does not yield to politics. 1893 brought my alternating current system to the World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago, where it illuminated the entire fair in a triumph witnessed by millions. 3 years later, my polyphase generators at Niagara Falls began transmitting power to Buffalo, New York, 26 miles away. That first large-scale demonstration proved what rotating magnetic fields could achieve. The energy flowing from Niagara to Buffalo did not travel through the transmission wires. It traveled through the electromagnetic fields shaped by those wires, propagating at nearly the speed of light, carrying the power of the falls to light a distant city. Edison's direct current system could never have accomplished this economically. The fields were the answer, and had always been the answer. The irony that would have tortured Edison if he understood it is this: his precious direct current, flowing steadily in one direction, demonstrated this field principle as clearly as my alternating current. Energy surrounding his wires also traveled through space rather than through metal. He built his empire without ever comprehending the deeper truth beneath it. Edison thought practically in terms of things like filaments, generators, wires, and switches. My thinking centered on fields. invisible patterns of force extending through space and carrying energy wherever we learn to guide them. The unit of magnetic field strength now bears my name because the IEEE, which governs electrical standards worldwide, chose Tesla to honor this work. Every time a physicist measures a magnetic field in Teslas, they invoke the principle I glimpsed in that Budapest park. Fields are real. Fields carry energy. Fields form the foundation of electrical power rather than being some incidental side effect the textbooks suggest. Once you grasp this truth, certain implications become inevitable. Wires are optional. Electromagnetic fields carry energy through the space surrounding conductors, which means they can carry energy through space without conductors at all. This realization drove my experiments at Colorado Springs, where I lit lamps positioned far from any wire connection by transmitting power through the earth and air using carefully tuned resonant circuits. Wardenclyffe Tower on Long Island represented my attempt to demonstrate wireless power transmission on a global scale. The vision was magnificent. Free energy distributed to any point on Earth through the natural medium of the planet itself. J.P. Morgan financed the initial construction before withdrawing his support. Honesty compels me to admit something here that I have not always admitted to myself. Modern physicists believe my wireless power system would not have worked at the scales I imagined because the Earth does not resonate the way I theorized, and the energy losses would have been prohibitive. My direction was right, but I pushed too far. The understanding of fields was correct, even where my engineering extrapolations exceeded what physics permits. But consider what exists today. Every wireless phone charger exploits the near-field effects I pioneered. Every MRI machine uses powerful magnetic fields to image the human body without touching it. Every radio tower, every Wi-Fi router, every 5G antenna transmits information through the same electromagnetic fields I spent my life studying. The principles were sound even where my grandest ambitions were not. A second implication follows from this truth. The speed of electrical signals has nothing to do with electron velocity. Speaking into a telephone sends your voice across continents in fractions of a second. Not because electrons have raced that distance, but because the field disturbance you created has propagated at light speed through the medium surrounding the wires. This is precisely why alternating current triumphed over direct current for power transmission. Current reversing 60 times per second creates fields that oscillate and reverse with it, carrying energy efficiently across vast distances through transformers that step voltage up and down with minimal loss. Direct current cannot do this. Edison's system was doomed from the moment Faraday discovered induction, though Edison never understood why. A third implication reaches even further. We have barely begun to harness what fields can do. Throughout space there is energy, whether kinetic or static, and we know it is there with certainty. Then it becomes a mere question of time until humanity succeeds in attaching its machinery to the very wheelwork of nature. For many years now I have been feeding pigeons in the parks of New York, thousands of them over time. One pigeon stood apart from all the others, a beautiful bird, pure white with light grey tips on her wings. She would come to me when I called, and I loved her as deeply as any man has loved anything. People think me eccentric, and perhaps I am. Marriage never happened for me. Hotels have been my home most of my adult life. Peculiar habits and specific requirements that others find strange have always been part of who I am. But when you have seen what I have seen, when electromagnetic fields become as real to you as solid matter, and you can visualize energy flowing through space with the same clarity as watching water flow through a mountain stream, ordinary concerns fade into insignificance. The progressive development of humanity depends on invention because it is the most important product of the creative brain. Its ultimate purpose is the complete mastery of mind over the material world and the harnessing of natural forces to human needs. This requires absolute dedication. It requires seeing the world as it truly is rather than as convenient fictions describe it. The next time you flip a switch, I want you to pause for a moment. You are not opening a valve to let electrons flow through a metallic pipe. What you are doing is shaping fields, commanding invisible patterns of force that extend through the space around you at the speed of light. The energy illuminating your room converges from all directions, flowing through the very air you breathe, guided by wires but never confined within them. Every motor in every machine you use operates because fields sweep through space while matter follows their command. Every transformer in every power grid works because oscillating fields induce currents without physical contact. Every wireless device in your pocket receives energy and information through the same medium I spent my life learning to harness. Edison saw wires while I saw fields. He lit a city block while I lit the world. This is what electricity truly is. Not charges crawling through metal tubes, not fluid pumped through copper pipes. Electromagnetic fields permeating space itself, shaped by our conductors, harnessed by our understanding, carrying the power of the universe wherever we learn to guide them. The day when humanity fully comprehends the nature of these fields will mark an event greater and more important than any other recorded in history. We approach that understanding more closely than most scientists admit. And when that day comes, when you see the fields as I have seen them dancing through space and carrying energy without limit and connecting every point in the cosmos, nothing will be impossible. The present belongs to others. The future, for which I have really worked, is mine.